My Millionaire Morning Routine. Now, it's kind of a cheesy title, I get it. However, I wanted to break down exactly what I do when it comes to the charts and when I'm trading, basically every weekday morning, including today, which is a Tuesday, the beginning of the year in 2026. So, I'm going to tell you in this video exactly what I do. I'm going to lay it out step by step, and then perhaps you can take some of the things I say and implement it into your morning routine, which in a couple years, hopefully, you can then say is your millionaire morning routine. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, whenever I get on the charts first thing in the morning, all I'm really looking for is I'm looking to just go out to the weekly charts. And then on the weekly charts, I'm just looking to see any updates in price to see basically if there are any of the zones I've drawn. My full trading strategy is linked in the description below, so you can just watch that whole 1 hour video. It's just a free training, and I also give you free access to my Telegram channel there as well, where you can just kind of follow all my trades and analysis on a daily basis. I post all of them here in the Telegram channel. It's just a free channel, but you can only get the link there in that free training. So that's how you'll know exactly the way that I trade is in that free training. However, basically all I do is I just draw support resistance zones in the chart on the weekly time frame, and I just set alerts and wait for price to get there. When price gets to one of those zones, I will buy if it's at support, and I will sell if it's at resistance, with a stop just past the zone and a target at a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio. So since that's literally basically all I do, like 95% of my trades are just that, what that means is that whenever I'm going to the weekly chart first thing in the morning, is I'm looking to see if price has got to any zones and if it's getting closer and if there's any developments or if it's breaking past or things like that. Now, I am currently in a short position here on 80 Canadian dollar because we've came here into this little resistance zone, right? Price popped up here into the resistance zone. I entered a short position. So my sell looks exactly like this. I'm going to show you here. I call all my trades in my little private Discord server thing. You don't need access to this. Just do the free training and stuff and the free Telegram, and that'll be more than enough for you. But these are where I call all my trades, and I entered a sell here yesterday. You could see a sell at the resistance zone here in the weekly. Very, very simple, very, very basic, very, very just easy to take trades, right? Just looking at resistance zones, selling, looking at support zones, and buying. So I put my stop far above the zone, and I put a take profit at a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio, and I risked $50,000 on this one. Okay, so $50,000. I risk a lot of money on the trades I take, and just over the past 3 months alone, this is my trading history here, I've taken a $350,000 deposit to over $313,000 in net P&L before swaps and commissions. This has been in just about 3 months. And so since I risk $25,000 to $50,000 per trade, it allows me to capture a lot of money whenever I win, and then I lose a little bit of money when I'm wrong because I usually get out of trades a little bit early. But I've sold right here at the resistance zone on 80 Canadian dollar, and since I'm coming to the charts today to look at this again, right, here's part of my morning routine, all I'm seeing is that price looks like it's breaking past the zone a bit. Now, is it to the point where I want to close? Not necessarily. I'm going to wait for the daily candle to close, and if this candle closes past the zone, I'll probably just be exiting this trade at a loss. It's at about $30,000 of loss right now, so just over halfway towards the stop loss. We'll see what happens. Now, here's another trading opportunity, GBP NZD. So I come to the chart, I'm here on the weekly. I can see everything because I've got my zones all marked up, right? Just these little basic blue zones, black and white charts with a black background and white candles. And then if price gets up here into this zone, all I'm going to be doing is selling. I'm going to sell with the stop loss above and a target below, and I'm going to risk on this one probably about $50,000 because I think it's a pretty high quality trade, worthwhile. So that looks like it hasn't really gotten to the zone yet, so I'm just going to be waiting for price to get there to the alert. And then I click through the next pairs that I'm looking to trade. I click through everything, and I go to the weekly and the daily, and I just look to see where price is at the major zones. So I'm going to go ahead and mark up this chart here on USD Canadian dollar. This is a trade that I took 2 days ago, and price popped up and hit the stop loss, and I lost $25,000 on this trade because here on the weekly, this is a clear support resistance zone. Price broke below and came back to retest. I sold, and then it didn't work out. It went up and stopped me out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this analysis to make it a little bit more clear, and I'm going to draw in just these major zones right here. So I still think price is likely to come down here into this zone, but you never can be too sure. And also, if you think price is going to go up or down, that doesn't mean you should take a trade. because you still have to ask yourself, well, what am I going to do if I'm wrong? Right? It's like, I think price is going to go down, sure, but where does my stop loss go? Like if I enter up in here and I think it's going to go down to the support zone, do I put my stop above the recent high, above the next recent high? Do I put it above these highs up here? Is there some sort of support resistance zone that I could delude myself into believing exists in here and then put my stop loss past that? There's no clear way to control risk whenever things are that wishy-washy. So I don't take trades just because I think price will go up or down. I wait for price to get into regions where it has shown evidence that it has bounced before multiple times pretty consistently. Then what I'll do is when price gets there, that's whenever I take trades. So for this one, I think this is fair enough right here, right around these little highs and lows where prices bounced a couple times. So I'm going to be waiting for USD CAD to get into here, and then I'll simply buy with a stop loss below and a target above at 1-to-1 risk reward ratio. Euro GBP was a trade that me and my crew here at Mission FX took last week. I called this trade in my Discord server and I made, I think, like 25,000. How much did I make on this one? Let's see. Euro GBP. So I lost the first one for 15,000 and then I made profit on the next one for 17,000. So roughly a break-even outcome on that. But basically, I just thought price was going to be bouncing here at this daily and weekly resistance zone. So when price broke below and came up to retest, I entered a short position. That one ended up falling. The first one stopped out because I risked a lot smaller of an amount on it. And then when it popped up deeper, I only lost like 15K on that. I was just structuring risk real tightly. I didn't even risk $25,000. If a trade seems like it's more likely to work out based on my experience, then I will hold it longer. And if it doesn't seem like it's likely to work out as much, then I'll just, I generally won't hold it as longer, and I'll also risk a little bit less. So Euro GBP, as I come here this morning for my millionaire morning routine, what am I going to do? Well, I'm just waiting on price to either get back here into this little resistance zone or perhaps go somewhere to the next support zone where it might bounce. I was looking at this a little bit last week, but I'm not so sure I'm going to be using that as an area to trade off of. For some reason, I just don't see it as being that relevant and that clear and that easy. And I don't know why, but I think it's just my discretion and experience and all my applied knowledge just coming into play. Whenever you get good at doing any skill set, you start to kind of get these feelings and intuitions, and you can kind of start to feel things out. And then if you listen to that intuition, it generally serves you pretty well because it's all your experience talking, even if you can't manifestly present it in words that could be easy for another person to understand. It'll still make sense to you personally. So for me, I don't know. I got a weird feeling about this one, so I'm not going to trade it. USD CHF, this was a trade that I took last week. So this was another one here. You can see USD CHF. I made $25,000 on this one. And that was a nice one. And I took the same basic trade like a week before that, right before Christmas, and I made $8,000 on that one. So USD CHF has been pretty nice the past 2 trades at least. So what were these trades? These trades were just basically buys at support. The first one was right in here 2 weeks ago, just before Christmas. That one bounced. I closed in profit because we got such an easy bounce. Then when it came back in like a week later, after Christmas had passed and New Year's and stuff, then I ended up entering a buy again, and then that bounced and hit the profit target last week. So this is what it looks like here. This is the daily chart. Look how simple this is. Price comes into the support zone, and I just buy, and then put a stop below and a target above, and then it hit the profit target. And it actually hit the TP order. You can see the little green right there where it shows that the TP order was actually triggered, and that's what closed the trade. $25,000 in profit, and it was a $25,000 risk. So what am I doing now this morning as part of my routine to go through this, to kind of prepare myself for any potential trade updates? I am concerned that this price might be breaking below this support zone. However, I still want to be notified if price gets into there, just so I can have a look at it and check out the price action and see if it looks like we might get yet another bounce. Oftentimes, you don't know how many times price can bounce at one of these zones because it could just keep doing it over and over and over. This case, it was bounced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and perhaps even now a 7th time. Just here at this support resistance zone, we have one interaction as support right here, broke below, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bounces. at this resistance zone so far. Sometimes this can go up to like 5 to 10 times. It can just keep bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball. But you never really know. That's why you have to control risk and put your stop just past the zone, target at least a 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio. That's what I do. And I try to cut losing trades a little bit earlier, and then I try to hold winning trades all the way to the TP order. This guarantees that even with a 50% win rate, which sometimes my win rate's a little higher than that, but even with a 50% win rate, which is basically just random chance, it's just a coin flip, I'm still making more when I'm right versus what I lose when I'm wrong. And that is how I'm able to have, as you've seen, I've made over $300,000 in realized P&L before swaps and commissions just in the past 3 months alone in an account. Imagine if you could take $1,000 account and nearly double it just over the course of a few months. Imagine if you could do it with $10,000 or $100,000 or like me, $300,000. It is a big deal to be able to do this. And what you have to do is you have to be real specific about the trades you're taking. And this involves me just taking my little millionaire morning routine and setting alerts at the major zones on the weekly chart and just waiting for price to get there and not doing anything until price gets there. So for USD CHF, I will not be doing anything until price either gets down here into the support zone or up here into the resistance zone. Then we will see what she chooses to do. So Euro USD, I've got another potential setup right here. I barely missed this trade last week. It was 2 weeks ago, because price missed this little alert here at this resistance zone. It almost got up into here, and so you could understand I'm waking up that morning, like 2 weeks ago, and price got deep up here into this zone, but it barely missed the alert. I thought price would come to where this high had bounced here, and that high had bounced there, and it almost did, but just not quite. This would have been an amazing trade. This would have been one of those trades I risk at least $50,000 on. And it probably would have already hit the profit target. And let's actually see, because if I would have entered somewhere in this region, like even if it's not perfectly at the alert, even if it was a little bit low, with the stop loss just above the zone as well as the recent extreme high, and then a target at a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio, it looks like this would have probably hit. That wouldn't have just triggered on spread. That would have actually hit and then filled the TP order. So that would have been such a nice trade. And it's funny because the fact that this barely missed the actual alert here, by how many pips? I mean, it was just above these highs, 5.4 pips. So by 5 pips, it missed the alert. And because of that, I now missed out on $50,000 in profit to my account. Stuff like that's going to happen all the time, but it comes with the territory whenever you control risk. Otherwise, you're just entering any and every trade for any and every reason, and you have no clear foundation and risk structure and consistency. What am I doing on Euro USD? I am in fact waiting for her to get into this zone down here. Now, is this zone super clear? Whenever we go back into here, it looks a little bit more wishy-washy because we've got like price trying to bounce up here. Is it bouncing as resistance or is it bouncing as support? I don't really know. Should we drag it down here? Does that make more sense? In this case, actually, yeah, perhaps this does make a little bit more sense. Looks like resistance 3 times here, broke above support, and then support again here, but just really high up into the zone instead of coming deep and testing it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set an alert right here in the middle of this zone. So this alert encapsulates that previous low, and then this low, and then these highs back here. I am waiting on Euro USD to get into here. Now, this is a weekly chart. Okay, sometimes we'll see price move like this, where it has these big weekly moves into the zones. Other times it takes 1 to 2 months to be able to have this kind of a move right here. For price to fall from where it's at right now all the way down here, that's about 250 pips, and that's if she even gets there. And that's one big if, because we never know exactly what will happen. I'll be waiting for price to get there because I do know if price gets there, that's a trade that presents a very good risk structure. An entry there at the support zone, a stop loss just below the zone, and the stop has to go below all the recent lows that have pinned outside the zone, so it'll go just below that, and then a target of just a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio. If I enter and price starts going sideways for like a week, then I'll probably end up closing it at a small profit or break even or a small loss. If price ends up trickling against me after a week with a couple daily candles, I'll probably close it at a loss. Maybe lose half of what the stop loss is instead of the full stop loss. So if I risk $50,000, I might only lose $25,000 instead of the full $50,000 risk. And if it bounces, by God, I will hold it to the profit target in most cases. depending on the context. So that's what I'm waiting for. Now, there is still the chance that Euro USD could pop back up here into this resistance zone. If that is the case, I'll probably still be looking to sell, honestly, because I still believe this is a pretty reasonable zone that presents a really good trading opportunity to enter short positions on. Whatever I do, I'll share it here in the free Telegram channel. That way you guys can get updates just like I do for all the other trading opportunities and setups. In fact, a lot of these that I've gone through here in this video, I've actually shared here in this Telegram channel as well this past week. So make sure you click the link in the description and do the free training. And in that free training course, you can join that free Telegram channel. There'll be a link in there so you can follow it and you can make sure that you're staying on top of things in real time. I'll be looking for this on Euro USD, either the buy setup or the sell setup. Just depends on where price gets to with the alerts. And in fact, I'm even going to drag this alert just down just a little bit to these previous highs. We'll see if she gets there. AUD USD, I don't really see anything for support where price is at right now. It's already bounced. This was like, a couple weeks ago. However, I do see price could potentially come up here into this zone. This is similar to Euro USD, how I'm looking for sells right now. But if price comes up here into this zone, I think that'll be a pretty fine zone to be entering sells at. So taking a sell there at that zone and entering with a stop loss above and a target below, this could be really, really nice. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move it a little bit further up on my list here. I think this presents a really nice, easy, simple trading opportunity, right? And if you enter, it's either going to break above or it's going to bounce below. What happens, you don't know. All you know is you just have to get into trading opportunities that make sense from a risk structure, and then you just let the stats play out. You can't predict where price is going to go. Trying to predict is just a fool's game. But what you can do is you can wait for trading opportunities in which they present a really good risk structure and a risk reward opportunity that produces a higher likelihood and a higher probability of you making a profit long term, given enough trades. Trading is just about making a little bit more than you lose. That's all it's about. It's not about winning every time. You shouldn't even be focused on winning. What you should be focused on is finding trades with good risk structures and parameters that allow you to not lose a lot when you're wrong, and then to be able to make a ton more whenever you're right. So AUD USD, I'll be waiting for price to get up here. This realistically is probably going to take another maybe 2 weeks minimum, in my opinion, because we need 2 more weekly candles. We could have a crazy spike candle that comes up into the zone like one of these down here, or even that one right here, but that still took 2 weeks or something like this. But I'm just going to be waiting to see if this even sets up. We will see what she does. So we've already covered, EU. So AUD JPY. AUD JPY, I was waiting on a pullback here to test this zone of support. I think what would be more reasonable given the yen's, should we call it weakness or strength? The XXX JPY pairs have a lot of strength. So I guess that means that the Japanese yen actually has a lot of weakness because these pairs are going, in fact, up. So I'll be waiting for price to come up here into this resistance zone on AUD JPY, and you'll notice that a lot of the other JPYs look the same. So for my millionaire morning routine, I'll be waiting for price to get up here into this region. And once we get up here into this region, I'll just be looking to sell. I'll be waiting for price to kind of get there, and then I'll be probably going to just enter a sell whenever it gets there. Stop above and a target below. We had a nice drop last time. I remember watching this drop happen live. That was mid 2024. Man, it feels like it was just the other day, but that was a year and a half ago. Euro AUD. So Euro AUD did in fact come a little bit lower. She's getting to a region here where I am interested in potentially getting long. And I'll show you why right here. So as we go here to the weekly chart, what I'd be doing this morning, right? I wake up, I stare at the chart with my eyes glazed over and my cold cup of coffee. And I look and I see, where is Euro AUD? Where is this pair in relationship to the recent zones? The other recent resistance zones like way up here, right? So this would take like maybe weeks or months to be able to get there. So I'm not particularly interested in that. As a matter of fact, that's why I didn't even have the zone drawn on the chart. But this one down here, price could get down here to where this low is and this high is. We found resistance there for a second, went sideways here for like a couple weeks before spiking above, came back and then had a nice big bounce before failing to make a new high, and then in fact coming lower. So I shared this in the Telegram yesterday. I shared that I thought Euro AUD was going to be going down. I said I don't see any setups, but Euro AUD looks like she will experience level failure here and continue lower, but there's no way to structure the risk if sells are taken. Where should the stop go? I don't know. It's too dynamic, so I didn't take a short trade Because honestly, where does the stop go, right? If I was trading this, would I put it above these recent highs? Would I put it above that recent high? Would I put it above the major resistance zone? Would I put it just above the previous candle high? Like, you know, what do you do? That's why I just like using support resistance better, because it's way more of a predictable, structured way to manage the risk. So I had predicted that that might be going down. It looks like it ended up, in fact, failing the level of breaking. And then since we got past this previous low right here, the next stop is probably going to be somewhere down in here, which presents a pretty good trading opportunity. So how would this trading opportunity look if price got here? It would simply be a buy at that support zone with a stop loss below and a target at a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio. Nice and easy, nice and simple, nice and clean. And you can even do all this while drinking your morning coffee. I have in my millionaire morning routine, I have a cup of coffee every morning. It gets me going, it gets me excited. You know, because looking at charts is like really boring, at least in my opinion. So if price comes here, this will be Euro AUD. It's what I'll be looking to trade. Now, GBP JPY has in fact broken the previous high here in these higher time frames. What am I looking for on GJ? Nothing right now. I have nothing else to say. Could she come back and retest this zone as support and bounce? Maybe, but when she was here recently a couple weeks ago, she didn't do anything. She didn't really like have basically any reaction. Maybe like one little wick down for a second, but no real reaction. So I'm worried about the relevance of that level. I'll be leaving her alone. GBP AUD is similar to Euro AUD. I got into a nice trade on this that I won a couple weeks ago. Is it even here in the trading history visibly? No, so this was a couple weeks ago earlier. But GBP AUD has been really good to me this last year in 2025. It's a great trading year. The beginning of the year was a little bit patchy, but we ended real nice and strong, making a couple $100,000. So GBP AUD coming down here, I do think that she'll probably end up breaking this zone. We've come down here, we've pulled back, retested this zone, tried to come and make a new low. We couldn't make a new low right there. So she tried yet again. The bulls came back, tried to come up here, try to get past these highs, perhaps to like have some discovery to the upside, make some new highs. But guess what? She failed again. Now she's come down here to the zone. We've had these last two weekly candles where prices tried to go up, got pushed back down, closed there. And then now in this last weekly candle, we've pushed up, and then now she's pushed back down immediately over the course of the past day, and she's now closing right here. So what do I think is likely? I think it's likely to anticipate that she'll probably be headed down for here. The problem is where do I structure the risk, right? Where do I set the risk at? Well, I'd have to put my entry somewhere in this region with a stop loss past this zone, because what that would mean is that as long as I enter this trade here as a sell, as long as she does not break past this zone, everything's technically valid, right? You know, this is where it gets kind of hairy. If you're trading on the daily chart, you enter a sell anticipating a level failure and a breakout past this zone, maybe to those next lows or something. Price could come back up here and it could range and go sideways for a couple candles. Well, 5 daily candles is a whole week. So you're sitting there for a whole week waiting like, okay, is it going to break out or not? And then she could go all the way up into here. And that could be like maybe 2 weeks from now. But even then, like probably a minimum of a week or two. And now she's sitting up here and you're halfway to your stop loss, which would be above this zone. And then she can like play around here. And then now she starts making higher lows and going sideways and doing all this stuff. And could end up breaking out, hitting her stop loss after a month. Or maybe dropping and getting to this zone after a month. And then not even breaking and hitting your profit target. So you end up getting trapped in a trade that might be taking quite a while to play out. This is why, even when I think price might go one direction or the other, and even if I happen to be right a good chunk of the time, I still just wait for support resistance. Look how much easier it is. When price bounced up here and then it came back to that low, it bounced within a couple days, had a nice move up. When price came back here again, if you would have bought that daily candle as it came here into the zone, right, within like 3-4 days, price had pushed all the way back up, you would have gotten your profit target hit in maybe 4 to 5 days. The same thing here at resistance. When price broke down through this zone, came back and tested these previous lows, it bounced within like basically 2-3 days, had a nice move. Came back up again, bounced 2 days, it had a nice move. Came up again, tried to bounce right here, failed, had a quick spike above the zone. This ended up pushing back down and closing with like a bearish wick, so it turned into a fake out, but you probably still would have gotten your stop loss hit up here if you had your stop loss above the zone. Well, guess what? If the candle closed like that and you choose to just re-enter your short position, you enter and then look, within 3-4 days, it's already away from the zone. This is why I believe support resistance is just the best, most crisp, sexy, juicy, voluptuous way to control risk. That's why I don't really use anything else. Again, every now and then I'll do something that might seem kind of quirky to somebody who doesn't have the experience that I do, but 95% of my trades are just based on basic support resistance because it's so simple and clear cut and textured and dynamic and sexy to be able to control risk using support resistance. You just put the stop past the zone. You put the target on the other side. You have trades that end up playing out so much easier, and trades where you can have a clear invalidation and get out of early if they look like they're not working. And on top of all this, even if you're using the weekly and the daily charts, the trade durations, for me personally, are usually only a couple days. It's very rarely that I hold a trade for more than a week or two. Very rare. At least over the past 4 months that I've been on this crazy win streak. Mainly what happens is I'll enter a trade, and within a couple days it either invalidates and I close at break even, or a partial loss close to the stop loss or halfway to the stop, or it'll just go and hit the profit target. It's just, and some of these trades will go within a few hours, and this is with weekly and daily chart analysis. And that's because I'm just waiting to get into the areas where there's a bunch of TNT. It's almost like there's explosives there at the zone. And when price gets there into the zones, they're already primed because everyone else knows it's an area that has had a major bounce before. Price gets there and there's an explosion to the upside, or vice versa, right? You get into a resistance zone, price comes up there, everybody liquidates their orders, and it's just boom, it just bounces away. It's so much easier, and that's why I choose to have my millionaire morning routine structuring trades this way with just support resistance. I promise you it's so much easier. That's just my opinion. You could do whatever you like, but I think it's best that way. So GBP Canadian dollar, we're still sitting in a range. We have price could go down here to these lows, could go up here to these highs. I'm waiting because we're not close yet. If anything, I think a best kind of situation would be a price could get all the way up here into these highs. Because if price gets all the way up in there into those highs, I think that'll present a really nice risk structure. And I really do think we could have a nice little bounce from there. That's what I'll be waiting for in GBP CAD, but that doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon. At best, maybe a week or two. All right, GBP USD. This is a similar situation to AUD USD and Euro USD. If price comes up here into this resistance zone, I'll be waiting to sell. And I'm going to go ahead and take off this zone down here because this is so far away from price that it's not, it's like drawing a zone down here, right? This was from July of 2022. So this is 3.5, 4 years ago. Yeah, it's technically a zone, but price is way the hell up here. It's going to have to go through a million other zones before it gets there. What's the point of drawing that? It's best to just look at current market price and just draw one clear zone above and below price. That's pretty close to it that you think price could bounce at. And in this case, I do think that GBP USD, we don't know if it will get up here into this resistance, but if it does, we can just enter, put a stop just above the zone like that, put a target down here at a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio with an entry somewhere here in the middle of the zone. That'll be a perfectly fine and dandy trade. NZD-JPY. I think NZD-JPY is at an interesting spot. However, I don't think it's an interesting enough spot to actually take a trade off of. This looks like a resistance zone, sure, but it's a little bit dynamic. I'm struggling to kind of find, is it that low there with these highs spiking past, or is it all the way up here with that high? I don't know, because it's kind of sloppy and it's just not as clear cut. I'm just going to be leaving it alone. I like stuff like GBP USD because here in the weekly chart, you can see very obviously, yeah, it bounced there, it bounced there, and if it comes up to that same spot again, well, by God, I will enter a sell with a stop above and a target below. NZD-JPY, it's just not that way right now. Perhaps you could just use this previous high right here, but it's a little bit further back, right? We're coming into September of 2024. I'm just not quite sure how relevant that level will be going forward into the future. I like stuff that's a little bit closer to price like that, but lo and behold, we will see what happens. CAD JPY, she's still pretty far from the area I'll be looking to sell at. This is similar to AUD JPY. I'll just be looking to set an alert here at this resistance, and if we get here in the next few weeks, perhaps I'll enter a short. Euro Canadian dollar, I actually don't see anything on this right now. There's these little zones that are sort of relevant on the lower time frames, but she's kind of in like a squeeze, kind of like a little like tight little range. I'm getting a little bit nervous, and I don't really know which zone she's likely to bounce at. So part of my routine on Euro, Canadian dollar over the next week or two is just going to be to do absolutely nothing. No alerts. I'll look at her and give her enough respect in that sense, maybe like once a week. But until we get into some clear structure next to some clear zones, I just don't think that anything here is relevant enough. You know, all this zone here from 10 years ago, I'm not convinced it's that relevant anymore. I'll just be waiting. There's plenty of other good trading opportunities. CHF JPY has been in a bull run. I am not inclined to sell this anytime soon, but by that same token, I'm not inclined to buy it either. I'd have to have a pretty tight stop, and it sucks whenever you have a tight stop in an uptrend because it could just have a big sell-off a little bit deeper and then just continue right back up. I don't like chasing stuff like this. I'm just going to stick to my little safe support resistance trading and call it a day. Euro JPY is the same situation as CHF JPY. It's a bull run. There's nothing to do. NZD USD is an interesting one because I, in fact, am waiting for it to come down here. We've got a zone. This one does go back into 2022, but we've got some recent tests right here, you know, back in March and April of last year, as well as a recent one from November. I think that a price can come all the way down here to these previous lows, right? So this is like pretty deep into the zone, about halfway into the zone. This will be a pretty good trade. Now, is this going to happen? We don't know. It could. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll have to reanalyze if it goes up further. But for now, I'm going to be waiting on this to set up. And if so, that will be a pretty good trading opportunity. I'll just have to be patient and wait here for a couple weeks probably for it to set up. And that's if it even sets up. USD JPY is similar to a lot of other JPY pairs. The price can get up here into this resistance zone. I'll go ahead and set the alert. Then I'll be looking for sells. And if that happens, that will be very nice, very sweet. So as far as crypto goes, crypto's popping up yet again. I'm going to go here and check out the crypto portfolio. Part of my morning routine is to just check my crypto portfolio and just kind of like, you know, pray that it like all works out. Am I not able to type in Coinbase? So here we go. So what is going on in crypto today? So I am up $60,000 today in crypto. Let's see. So $18,000 the past hour, $160,000 the past week. I am waiting on crypto to continue up, and so far crypto's looking good. And you'll notice I do the same thing on crypto that I do in Forex trading. I just wait for price to get to major zones. I'll accumulate positions at those zones, and then I'll just wait basically. So my first position on Solana was when price came back here into this little support resistance zone. So it had bounced here like up and down a couple times. So when it came into here, I bought, and then when price broke below and came into the next zone, I bought down here again, and that moved my average price, which is this purple line, about halfway in between the two areas that I bought. So that is on Solana. And if she comes back here, that's my average position. I'll get to break even there, and I'll probably close at maybe like 240 or something up here. It'd be a nice little maybe 40% gain. Yeah, like a 43% gain. Same thing on Avalanche. Bought down here at these lows down here, and also bought at the support resistance zone up here. Same thing with Chainlink. I bought as price had pulled back to one of the support resistance zones. Didn't add as she went lower. And then a lot of these other ones I'm just still holding as I've bought at zones whenever they were going up, and just kind of like added on the dips as they went down. So I'm waiting for these to kind of like break out. Traditionally for an altcoin season, we need the Russell 2000 index to go and start making higher highs and go into price discovery. That's been the prerequisite for the last few alt seasons, and I think that would have to happen. And here would be a good sign if that could happen. It looks like she's struggling to drop, and if anything, it looks like we might be getting a move to the upside. So that would be good. It's really good for investors' risk sentiment. The S&P 500 just continues to bull day after day, week after week, month after month. So we will see if she can continue to bull. It's looking like it. But a lot of really good, really sweet, cool things happening in the markets right now. I will be managing my AUD CAD trade depending on how the daily candle closes. And basically everything that I've just showed you here in this video that I do for my morning routine, it takes me maybe about 15 minutes to do every morning. And then I have my coffee. Sometimes I'll go work out. Sometimes I'll play video games for a little bit. I'll walk my dog. I go on a lot of walks. Sometimes I'll go and have like a cigar at the cigar lounge. Sometimes I'll go and wash my car, go to the shooting range. There's a bunch of different things that I do so that way I incorporate enough leisure into my day. So that way I'm not just like grinding hardcore all day long, doing nothing but work and not having a life outside of trading. Because I mean, that would be very, very unfortunate. For me at least, I guess. I like to have a life outside of trading. It feels nice and peaceful and fun and enjoyable and satisfying and fulfilling. And then once I do this, then I'll come back later in the day and probably look at the charts for another 15 minutes. So realistically, I'm only on the charts about maybe 30 minutes to an hour per day. If I didn't run my business and didn't have Mission FX and everything, I'd probably be on the charts like legitimately maybe like 30 minutes a day. It just doesn't take very long. If you know what you're looking for and you're using the weekly time frames and you're setting alerts and things like that, that is really all you have to do. It's not really like that complicated. So as long as you're doing that, you can keep things real simple. It gives you a good way of controlling risk, and then hopefully you can learn how to get profitable, my friend. Hope this video was useful. If it was, good. I'm happy you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one, my friend. Happy trading.